This episode, Tony Blair, Leading in Chaos, A New World Order and AI from the Apex Strategy series, is brought to you by Vizkard Studio.
Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show where we unpack complex ideas from a stack of sources, giving you the essential insights and maybe a few surprising facts along the way.
Our mission is really to cut through the noise, help you get well-informed quickly and thoroughly so you can connect the dots and, see the bigger picture in our rapidly changing world.
Today, we're embarking on a really fascinating deep dive into the perspectives of former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair. We've pulled together insights from a series of his recent conversations, speeches.
Yeah, a whole range of things.
Covering everything from global geopolitics and the future of international relations, right through to the nature of political leadership itself and the transformative power of technology.
And these sources, they reveal a pretty consistent thread of big picture thinking. He's drawing lessons from his, extensive time in office and his current work advising governments worldwide.
So you'll hear how he views the shifting global landscape, the fundamental challenges facing political leaders today, and maybe what still gives them hope for the future.
It's quite a range.
So get ready to unpack some seriously compelling ideas with us. Let's maybe jump right into his observations on the global landscape first.
Okay.
When he was asked about the post-World War II global architecture, Blair offers a telling perspective. He sees it less as crumbling and more as everyone being shaken out of their comfort zone. He even goes so far as to call it the most significant geopolitical event he can remember. What do you think he means by that specific phrasing, shaken out of their comfort zone, rather than, say, crumbling?
Yeah, that's a crucial distinction, isn't it? Because crumbling implies decay, maybe inevitable collapse.
Right, something final.
Exactly. Whereas shaken out of comfort zones suggests a unnecessary disruption, perhaps, maybe even a productive reevaluation.
Okay.
I think he means that nations, particularly Western ones, had sort of settled into these predictable roles and alliances. Now, with new powers rising and old conflicts heating up, there's this, he calls it a frantic foraging for options.
A frantic foraging.
Yeah, leaders everywhere rethinking their positions, their relationships. It's dynamic, not static, a period of change.
So what does this shaking out look like on the ground then? Blair identifies, I think, 3 major ongoing tests that he believes will really indicate the future direction of this new global order.
Precisely. And those are global trade, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, and of course the ever-complex Middle East.
Okay, the big ones.
Yeah, he sees these as flashpoints, the things that will shape the contours of whatever new international system emerges. And interestingly, he says that shaking out of the comfort zone isn't necessarily a bad thing.
How so?
Well, he points to Europe, for example, which is now, perhaps for the first time in decades, seriously reconsidering its defense capabilities, taking more responsibility for its own security.
And he has a unique historical view on that, doesn't he? He actually started pushing for European defense as a concept, 25 years ago? After Kosovo?
That's right. He recalled back then 90% of the assets used were American. Just underscored Europe's, as he put it, complete dependence on the U.S. for critical things like intelligence, surveillance, strategic lift.
That ability to move forces quickly.
Exactly. So he poses this direct question now. Will Europe finally get its act together for credible deterrence?
A question many are asking.
It's definitely pertinent. And it's a shift we're kind of seeing unfold. You look at the recent Draghi report on European competitiveness, that certainly points to a renewed focus on self-reliance, strategic autonomy.
So Europe is feeling the shakeup.
Seems like it. And it's not just Europe. Blair also highlights Africa. He says leaders there recognize the old order is gone and are now much more focused on, making the best of their own world. For instance, Africa currently only conducts about 15% of its trade internally. So this disruption, this shakeup, could genuinely drive positive change, maybe greater regional integration there.
Okay, interesting. Now, speaking of global hotspots, Blair dedicates significant attention to the Middle East. How does he frame the broader picture there?
He frames it fundamentally as a struggle for modernity.
Modernity.
Yeah, a push for societies that embrace religious tolerance, open economies, connection to the world. And he's very, very clear on drawing a distinction between Islam, the religion, and Islamism, which he describes as turning religion into a political ideology, one he sees as totalitarian and, frankly, economically backward. That distinction is really crucial for him.
I see. And how does that apply to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
Well, he uses that frame to analyze it. He describes it quite starkly as two peoples living side by side in a tiny territory comparable, he says, to New York State.
Wow, that puts it in perspective.
It does. And he sees only two sort of viable long-term outcomes, either a peaceful resolution, something like Northern Ireland.
A political settlement?
Right. Or the alternative is the stronger power having to effectively sit on the weaker one just to maintain security, which implies, a less desirable perpetual state of conflict management, not resolution.
And he stresses that the current situation in Gaza is just so terrible that it has to be the starting point for any future hope. But what does he emphasize beyond just, say, a formal agreement? What's needed?
He says that for Israelis to even consider a two-state solution is realistic, there needs to be more than paper. There needs to be a genuine cultural peace.
A cultural peace.
Yeah, ensuring a fundamental acceptance of Israel's existence. Without that bedrock acceptance, he argues, the security concerns will always outweigh any political roadmap.
That makes sense.
And he also emphasizes the critical need for a day-after plan for Gaza, one where neither Israel nor Hamas is in control. That's essential, he thinks, to create that necessary hope on the ground for Palestinians.
And that links to wider regional deals.
Potentially. This is where he believes a larger Saudi-Israel-American deal could have potential, and it's a big broad, but its success hinges entirely on resolving Gaza first and delivering tangible hope for Palestinians.
And when it comes to the regional players, who does Blair see as the primary destabilizer in the Middle East?
He identifies Iran pretty directly as the origin of most of the destabilization. He does note, though, that its proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Assad regime, seem to have shown some recent weakening. Maybe internal pressures, maybe regional shifts, it's hard to say.
But the goal regarding Iran?
The goal, he stresses, remains clear. Constrain Iran and prevent it from acquiring nuclear weapons.
He also briefly highlights the crisis in Sudan, calling it the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Something that often gets less attention.
Tragically less attention. Yeah, millions displaced, terrible death tolls. He suggests the main challenge there is just a lack of international bandwidth.
Bandwidth?
Yeah, the collective capacity, the political will to actually focus attention and compel the warring factions towards some kind of stable government. It's a stark example of how global attention can be stretched so thin.
Given this incredibly complex, sort of volatile global landscape Blair describes, it naturally leads to the question, what kind of leadership is actually needed to navigate these turbulent times?
Right.
Let's shift gears maybe to his unique insights on leadership and governance. He has a particularly fascinating take on the nature of political leadership itself.
He certainly does. He notes that political leadership is pretty unique because leaders are often put in these immensely powerful positions with, as he puts it, absolutely zero qualifications or experience.
Ah, that's quite blunt.
It is. He jokes his first ministerial appointment was literally prime minister, which is, quite the learning curve for anyone, let alone running a country. It highlights the unique pressure cooker of that job.
But how does one adapt? He emphasizes this crucial transition, doesn't he? From being a great persuader when you're in opposition.
Right. Winning arguments, winning votes.
To becoming a great chief executive once you're actually in government. He says they're entirely distinct skill sets.
Completely different jobs, basically.
And he also points to what he calls the conspiracy for inertia within government systems.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that phrase? It sounds intriguing.
It's a powerful phrase, yeah. He means that governments, just by their nature, tend to manage the status quo. They resist fundamental change.
Why is that?
Well, there's an institutional resistance. Systems are designed for stability, predictability. And elected politicians, let's face it, are often viewed by the permanent system as temporary. Here today, gone tomorrow.
Ah, I see.
So this ingrained inertia, he argues, makes truly transformative governance incredibly difficult, no matter how strong the leader's vision is.
And this leads directly to what he sees as the single biggest challenge for democracy today. Efficacy. Just simply getting things done.
Exactly. Can democracies deliver?
Which is why he advocates so strongly for this policy-first approach. Why is that so critical for him?
Well, his core philosophy is this. If you lead with politics first, policy second, meaning you prioritize what's popular or partisan advantage over what actually works, you end up with outcomes that are either, in his words, boring or extreme.
Okay.
And ultimately, he believes that leads to failure. The effective approach, he argues, is the other way around. Policy first, politics second.
So figure out the solution first.
Yes. First, work out what the right answer is to a problem, based on evidence, deep analysis. Then you shape the political strategy around implementing that answer. A policy, he really stresses this, is a tough intellectual business. It requires rigorous, deep work, not just, waving placards with ambitions.
Can you give an example of what that looks like in practice from his time, perhaps?
Absolutely. He points to the UK's child poverty reduction during his premiership. He says it wasn't just a campaign slogan. It was achieved through a specific mixture of policies, things like tax credits, minimum wage, investment in early years, all focused on getting the right answer to actually lift families out of poverty. It required detailed cross-departmental effort.
Right, the hard yards of policy work.
Exactly.
Now, moving beyond traditional policy, Blair is absolutely convinced about the current technological revolution, particularly AI. He calls it the biggest technological change since the Industrial Revolution.
He does, and he thinks it will change literally everything.
But he sees a critical gap, though, doesn't he, between the policymakers and the change makers, the tech developers.
A huge gap. He says policymakers often fear the change makers. They don't understand the tech. And sometimes the tech developers avoid the policymakers, maybe see them as obstacles. It leads to this dangerous lack of dialogue.
And is government ready for the implications? For potential crises?
He's quite blunt about that. He says governments are definitely not ready for a major AI crisis. He even likens the potential for misuse to a July 1914 type moment, referencing the cascading events that led to World War I, a sudden, unforeseen escalation.
That's a chilling comparison.
It is. So the imperative for leaders, he says, is threefold. Understand it, master it, harness it. You have to mitigate the risks, but also embrace the vast opportunities.
He also talks about reimagining the state in this context. What does he mean by reimagining the state with AI?
He envisions moving away from what he calls a maximalist government, one that tries to do everything, control every aspect, often inefficiently,
The old model.
towards a more strategic state. This strategic state would focus on setting frameworks, setting goals, fostering collaboration, allowing for diversity and competition. Especially, he thinks, to foster the kind of self-perpetuating innovation that's often lacking in the public sector.
And the potential benefits.
Huge, he believes. He genuinely envisions AI transforming public services. He talks about an AI doctor providing initial diagnostics, personalized treatment plans, or an AI tutor offering tailored adaptive education for every single student. Game-changing potential.
That is a significant vision. And he also makes a direct call to the technology sector itself, doesn't he?
Yes, he really urges the tech sector to actively help governments, especially in the developing world. He says, don't just try to replicate complex, maybe outdated Western systems there. Instead, leverage the new tech to leapfrog, to achieve better outcomes more directly.
Use tech for development. Okay, now on another crucial and often politically charged topic, populism and immigration, Blair offers a nuanced insight here.
He does. He says populists don't invent grievances. They may exploit them, but the grievances are usually real.
What kind of grievances?
Things like stagnant wages for decades, anxiety over rapid cultural change, and, yes, concerns about immigration levels or control.
And his view on immigration itself.
It's quite pragmatic. He says, properly controlled, it's a good thing. Benefits the economy, society. However, and this is the key part, he cautions, if you don't have rules, you'll end up with prejudices, meaning leaders must send a clear signal that entry has to be lawful. Lawfully or you don't come in, is his phrase. If you don't establish and enforce clear rules, immigration becomes this raw grievance that populists can easily exploit to divide people.
And he believes centrist politicians need to step up.
Absolutely. They must face political reality, he says, and actually provide credible solutions to these real grievances, rather than just trying to manage the status quo or dismiss the concerns.
What's his long-term outlook on populism, then? Does he think it's here to stay?
He argues that fighting populism requires a similar spirit of insurgency from moderates. You need new ideas, strong organization, you need to connect with people's concerns. His prediction, though, is that populism will eventually disillusion its supporters because it often doesn't deliver sustainable answers and it will fade. But only if centrist politics can offer compelling, effective alternatives.
Right. It requires an active response.
Definitely.
So, after discussing all these complex challenges, geopolitics, tech disruption, populism, what does Blair's overall outlook actually look like? Does he find reasons for hope?
Surprisingly, perhaps, yes. Despite the often grim headlines, he maintains an overall positive perspective.
Really?
On what basis? He strongly believes the world, on the whole, has got better, not worse, over the last 30 years. He points to concrete things. Hundreds of millions of people lifted out of poverty, particularly in Asia. He points to improved life expectancy, reduced death rates from killer diseases in places like Africa.
Tangible progress.
Tangible progress. And he also makes this interesting point that pessimism is often a Western-centric view. He finds that people in many developing nations are actually generally more optimistic about their future prospects than people in the West are.
That's a really interesting observation.
Sure.
And looking ahead internationally, how does he see things shaping up? He views the current multipolar world as
a good thing and inevitable. He doesn't lament the end of unipolarity.
And his prediction for mid-century global power dynamics. Who are the key players?
He predicts that by around mid-century, 3 superpowers will likely dominate the global stage: America, China, and India.
India as well. Interesting.
Yes. And with that reality, he emphasizes the urgent need for regional blocs like Europe, like ASEAN in Southeast Asia, to really consolidate their own power and influence if they want to remain relevant players. They can't just rely on the U.S. umbrella forever.
And his specific approach to China, given its superpower status, it seems quite pragmatic.
It is very pragmatic. His advice is essentially engage with China, understand China, and critically, not engage in trying to isolate China. He thinks that's counterproductive.
But maintain strength.
Yes, absolutely. While engaging, he stresses the need to maintain Western military and technological superiority. It's this delicate balance, he argues, is essential for navigating the multipolar future without stumbling into unnecessary, dangerous confrontation.
Finding that balance. Now, what's really fascinating, and maybe underlies all of this, is Blair's strong conviction about the quality of governance. He sees it as the key determinant.
Absolutely. He believes the quality of governance, of which leadership is obviously a huge part, is the determinant factor in whether countries ultimately succeed or fail. More important than natural resources, history, anything else.
And he offers some compelling examples to back that up, doesn't he?
He certainly does. He draws these stark contrasts. Poland versus Ukraine, starting similarly after the Cold War. Rwanda versus Burundi, neighbors with similar challenges. And of course, the classic example, North versus South Korea.
All starting from similar positions.
But diverging dramatically, he argues, primarily due to the quality of governance.
So what constitutes good governance for him? He distills it down.
Yeah, he has his 4 Ps of government, which he says apply universally, whether you're running a huge democracy or a small developing nation. They are. Prioritize, you can't do everything. Get the right policy, that policy first idea again, have the right personnel, get good people. And performance manage, actually track if things are working.
Simple, but hard to execute.
Very hard. He also advises leaders simply to have a clear direction, build a good team, and critically cultivate a kind of Zen-like attitude towards the constant distractions and attacks in modern politics, especially with social media. Easier said than done, I imagine.
I would think so. And finally, he offers this deeply reflective, almost paradoxical thought about his own journey as a leader. It's quite revealing.
It's a very human insight, isn't it? He shares that he felt he started as prime minister at his most popular and least capable.
Right, steep learning curve.
And ended his time at his most capable and least popular.
Irony.
It's a striking irony, yeah, that leaders often gain the necessary experience, the perspective, maybe the humility, just as their time in office is ending. He even says he wished he'd known those lessons much earlier.
Wow. What a journey through the mind of a leader who has, literally been at the center of global power and change for decades. It's clear the challenges we face are immense. Navigating geopolitics, tackling that inertia within our own systems.
Absolutely. What really stands out to me is that consistent call for the policy-first approach. Get the substance right. And also the sheer urgency he feels about governments needing to truly understand and harness this technological revolution.
Yeah, the AI point was powerful.
And the idea that governance quality, just basic competence and direction, is the ultimate determinant of a nation's success or failure, that's a really powerful, practical message.
And his optimism, despite all the grim headlines we see every day, it is genuinely thought-provoking. It's a reminder that progress is possible. And that maybe our own engagement, our willingness to understand the real grievances that drive things like populism, and our commitment to finding those right answers he talks about, can actually make a difference.
Indeed. It really is a reminder that even in this era of incredibly rapid transformation, those core principles of effective leadership, having a clear vision for the future. They remain absolutely essential, whether you're leading a country, an organization, or just navigating your own daily challenges.
So as you reflect on this deep dive, maybe consider this provocative thought. How can you apply that policy-first mindset to your own challenges? How can you strategically tackle that conspiracy for inertia, maybe in your own life or work, to achieve real, impactful change?
Join us next time for another deep dive, where we'll continue to cut through the complexity and bring you the knowledge you need to thrive in our changing world.